y'all, it's season 3 of the Be Your Own Kind podcast, and we humbly thank you for tuning in. Be Your Own Kind's mantra is there is never an inopportune time to be yourself. In other words, be you without apologies. In this season, I will be presenting nuggets and interviewing individuals that are creating their lane and rocking it. Be sure to check out the featured businesses in the description box and follow us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and pretty much every platform. Okay, now let's take flight. Well, hello, Juliette. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Like I said, it's a Monday, so,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being a guest today. I was
Absolutely.
just super intrigued by your profile, and that which
Thank you.
had me reach out to you because you're just dynamic, just from the hair and the profile and the travels and everything. I'm like, you are super dope.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you do a lot here. You are an educator, entrepreneur. You are an author of a book that I needed as a college student, sharing my college experience. What college experience did you have that led up to you writing this book?
So first and foremost, my college experiences have nothing to do with me writing the book. They're like two separate experiences. Yeah. So honestly, I did take college classes in high school. So I had like the semi-high school, semi-college experience. For me, it was a lot. I tried to quit. My guidance counselor snitched on me. So the head of the program, he snitched on me, called my mother, and they were like, let's all laugh together. You're not quitting. We're not doing this. You're still taking these college classes in high school. And I didn't really enjoy school. I went to a predominantly Caucasian school. There weren't as many kids that looked like me, so I didn't really care for school as much. But I went in. I knew that I had to go in and get my work done. So I kind of was just like, I'm gonna get my education and be done. So yeah, that was that. College, again, same thing. I was in to get an education and be out. I didn't participate in any sports. I wasn't on a step team like I was in high school. It was very just be in and be out. Now, years after, I will say 2018, 2019, I was offered an opportunity to write a memoir about my life from a Christian publisher. And I got in their proposal and so on and so forth. And I said, all right, when I have the money and the budget, I will move forward with you. And I think I got to a place where I was like, oh, maybe I can move forward with this person. This was months later. And I heard a voice that was like, no, you don't even know your testimony. And I was like, ooh. And I remember I was in my bathroom. I was standing in my bathroom, like in front of the mirror. And I was like, ooh. And the same voice was like, that's not the person who's going to tell your story. So I'm like, okay. So, and I feel bad because I never called the person back. I really pondered upon that. And actually a month later, really all hell broke loose with school. I am officially a PhD now, but at that time, that's when stuff got really tough. That's when my grad school experience got really, really challenging, right? And so later on that year, I was connecting with one of my mentees, and we were just chatting it up about something we wish we knew going into college. And I was like, that's it. That's what I'm going to write about. And the nice thing is, because I was in my PhD program and I was studying psychology, it really gave me a very different lens as to the academic experience. And, granted, it came with its challenges, but I have to say, in my grad program this time around, I enjoyed it much more than I enjoyed undergrad. I was going in because my parents wanted me to go in. I was doing it because I wanted to, and I was able to kind of craft my experience so it worked for me. And so I was able to kind of share those gems, but it really brought me back to like, just, writing almost a letter or resource for my younger self of all those things I wish I knew, because even taking college classes in high school, that didn't even prepare me for college. No. I failed. I hate to say it. I slept all through accounting that first semester. I didn't make it. I failed. And, again, you think that you have a lot of those skills to transfer into college, and you don't. And unfortunately, college becomes a very negative experience for a lot of students because we're not given tools to understand our purpose going into college, to really understand ourselves, to choose a school that fits with our learning style, right? to not go for a title, but to actually go for an area or a general field that piques your interest, where you feel like you can make an impact. Hey, if I don't want to be a nurse, I still am interested in the field of medicine, right? So maybe I could be a dietitian, maybe I could be a nurse practitioner, maybe I could be, I don't know, a fitness health instructor or something like that. So all to say, yeah, that was kind of the journey. They're very two separate experiences, but here we are.
Wow, I love it. I actually was expelled, like I was on academic probation in my undergrad. It's because it was too much freedom for me. Yeah, I understood why my mom was like, yeah, you're gonna go to, because I lived in Chicago. You're gonna go to UIC instead of U of I. And I'm like, no, I got this. So I did go to UIC, and I got expelled in Chicago, like, because it was so much. It was so much fun. And the funny thing is, I was partying at U of I, not going to class at UIC, because it was so much fun. I'm like, oh my God, so much freedom. They don't take attendance. Oh right. It's amazing. And I was at the top. Right.
You don't know, it doesn't catch you.
Right. So I'm like, oh, it's just like high school. I don't have to do this. I don't have to.
Right there.
You know what I'm saying? And looking back, I mean, I did eventually graduate. Later on, I got my act together and got back to school and things of that. But at that time, it was just like, oh, I could just, I skimmed through high school. I skimmed through college. It's not the same.
And you feel like you could do the same thing. Yeah.
Right.
I even had a student. I reached out to the students I had at the time, and I had one of my high schoolers. I said, hey, what are some of the things you wish they told you? What are some of the things you hope they tell you about high school? He was like, I just want to know where the party's at. And I'm like, you poor thing. You poor thing. He's like, I just want to know where the party's at. I want to know where all the clubs are. Who do I hang out with? Where are the coolest? And I was just like, you poor thing. But okay, sure.
I was networking. I just wasn't networking. Right. But I wish that I wish that I wish I had that guy who was like, hey, you got to learn balance between work, and because it's actually preparing you for adult life, right? If I go out on a Sunday night, I know I got to work on Monday, so I need to make sure I'm at home and enough time to be prepared for work. So that's what college actually preparing you for the real world, in a sense.
Absolutely.
It's still kind of cushiony in school, but it gives you like the basics when you get,
absolutely
to adult life. So
I completely agree.
I still wouldn't take from that. I still wouldn't, like, how people say, if I could do it all over again, I probably would do it the same way so that I can help the next person. Like, you might not want to do that, so yeah.
There's a lot of growth, and I think there's a lot of growth and evolving and healing that occurs. And I think of the negative experiences in my life, and of course, if I have a choice, I'm like, maybe it would have been easier if I didn't have to deal with them. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, will I have evolved the way I have? Well, you know what I mean? Like, you being on academic probation, how much does that strengthen your cabin beyond, just the experience of, like, they just really saw me as someone who's damaged goods at this point, because I'm just partying it up. But it still strengthens your character, right? You have to go through a moment of like self-reflection. You have to really have a kumbaya moment with yourself, like, all right, sis, you got to get it together. And you know what? That doesn't mean it's the end, right? You went back and you finished it. And of course, as you said, it helps the next person, because I think sometimes when we feel like maybe we had a setback or we fell down at some point of the journey, it's like we're written off and it's completely over. No, you have a chance to start again. You have a chance to continue. You have a chance to pick up where you left off, or redirect whatever path it is to, achieve the success you're looking for. So. Exactly.
And I think people need those real stories. Like, it's nice for the person that went through the whole 4 years. I think it took me 6, the whole 4 years, and it's just like, yes, that's empowering. But there's that student like us that went to school and was like, what on earth? Like, this is overwhelming. Yeah,
absolutely.
So that book is much needed. Yeah, that book is much needed.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you one of the things that drew my attention to you as well is that you're Haitian American.
I am.
Yes, and I have a
friend.
You? I have a friend. I have a friend that's Haitian American.
But we're always recruiting. Yes.
she keeps me informed. She's so prideful, of her culture. She lets me know like the non-touristy things about Haiti, and she's always doing like care packages and like, hey, if you can just, she's always giving back, trying to give back to her country. So as I was looking up things though, I love that I have her in my life, because sometimes online doesn't have a great depiction of other people's culture. Like I saw a lot about voodoo, and I saw a lot about Haitian Americans are loud and they have a problem with authority, and I'm just like, that's not my experience, so so I love that. What do you take pride in being Haitian American?
I mean, I think it's just our story of resilience, our story of, I tell you this, the fact that we were the first, and this is something I'm very big about. Black History Month passed last month, and I tell people, like, Haitian history is Black history, right? There would be no Black History Month without Haitian history, because after we were the first to get independence, we went and started fighting everybody else's wars. And they like to say that Haitians are nosy, but we were nosy with us, all right? We're like, we're not keeping this freedom for ourselves. We're really wanting to see everyone else thrive. And this was even in the Civil War. We took in refugees, newly formed slaves, refugees from the Americas at a point, after they'd gotten there.
So for me, I think it's just those stories of resilience. Really, it's those stories of resilience, seeing my parents' story and seeing the sacrifices they've had to make. My grandmother being a merchant, and creating a life for her children, and me here. For me, I think that just speaks so many volumes. And I always think of just, it's kind of like the sacrifices they made, knowing that they may not have seen it for themselves, right? I think when we look at our ancestors, whether Haitian or not, when it came to the fight for freedom, those who fought for civil rights, those who fought for freedom, abolition and so on and so forth, it's like, I may not live to see this freedom for myself, but it's worth it because my children are going to see it, their kids are going to see it, and it's going to go down the line. So it's worth it. And I think just thinking about that when it comes to my Haitian ancestors, that makes me so very proud. I know they speak about voodoo and so on and so forth, but it's like, I think for me, and I'm Christian, I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, I believe in Jesus and so on and so forth. But for me, I know I sat in American classrooms and they taught me about Greek mythology, but because we have another religion it has similar concepts, right? Passed on from generation to generation and so on and so forth. Right. All of a sudden, it's like we're writing off this religion and we're calling it, we're vilifying it to the point that it's like we're elevating the European ones and then we're vilifying those that come from, our Black roots. And so again, it's perspective, is not me saying that I believe in the religion or anything like that, but all to say, the culture is beautiful. We have the best rice. That is not a debate. We could argue about every other dish, but we got the best rice. Our history is beautiful. Our music is beautiful, and just it's the stories of resilience. I think as well, people will make judgments and people will make stereotypes based on their lived experiences. So perhaps, sometimes at the end of the day, it comes down to someone's character, right? Mm-hmm. I could meet a Haitian person and I had a bad experience with them as a friend. I don't know, they stole my money. But at the same time, I could meet an Italian, I could meet an African American, I could meet a Canadian who also stole my money. So I think sometimes people might create and I don't want to say create narratives because everyone's experiences are valid, but I think people do create narratives and make these general assumptions based on their small lived experiences or what they heard from the 2 or 3 people. But that doesn't encompass the full picture. Haitians, resilient. Yes, we are nosy. I know in my church I grew up, one person is sick, everybody feels like they're sick too. We celebrate together, we suffer together, we cry together. And so, yeah, that kind of just all goes into what I'm proud to be Haitian. So, yeah.
And I wouldn't even call it like nosy. I would call it a community, because that's what I feel like now, like it just lacks community. Like I feel some cultures are just losing that community. If you don't preserve your roots or preserve your culture, you lose that. It used to take a village to raise all of us. Now it's like, don't tell me what to do with my kid. I got in trouble by everybody, the whole church. Like,
Right. God forbid you get in trouble by one person and you don't convince them not to tell your parents, you get in trouble twice.
Right. And now it's like, this is my kid. You can't tell me what to do. You know,
Right.
like, so I feel like we still need that community because we don't know everything. We don't, you know, so
and I really feel like there's opportunity for just, I think, the Black diaspora, just Black folk in general, right?
Mhm.
And unfortunately, history has dealt us a really tough hand where it's divided us so much. You know, you have your Africans, right? Then you have your African Americans, and then you have your Afro-Caribbeans, right? And then you have your Afro-Asians, you have your Afro-Latinos, you have your Afro-Europeans, like there. And unfortunately, everyone in some way, somehow feels like we're better, right? And we also feel like the other groups think they're better than us, right? So if I'm African American, right? And when I say African American, saying my ancestors were slaves, I'm the descendant of slaves in the Americas, right? In the United States, I'm like, all right, well, these African immigrants, these Haitian, Jamaican immigrants, they think they all that and so on and so forth. They think they're better than me, but I'm still gonna rub in their face that I have my citizenship and that they don't, right? And then you have African immigrants, you have those from the Caribbean coming in, and they're like, yeah, they think they're better than us because they speak English and we don't, but whatever, I got land back home. You know what I mean? It's like, when are we going to come together and realize at the end of the day, our blood still bleeds red, you know? And this, whether you light skin or dark skin, no matter what level of chocolate you are, no matter which hue on the diversity Crayola crayons box you are, listen, we all, we come from the same motherland. And so I think, especially when it comes to advocating for each other, we really need to learn to come together and stop constantly feeling like our issues are so isolated and so on and so forth. And as you said, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to really come together and support a human being. People need people. So
I love that. And I stress that all the time, even with the no mask with COVID. It's just always a divide for no reason. And it's a distraction.
No reason.
It's a distraction to me.
Yeah.
Because as long as we're fighting, we're missing things that's actually happening around us that we should be paying attention to. You know, Absolutely. So I get irritated with the little divide. So you are.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah, you're
I'm
totally
with you on that.
Like, who cares?
I'm with you on that. Right.
Now, understanding your culture is also a part of understanding who you are.
Yes.
And I know that that's one of the topics we want to touch upon. Like, what were some of the factors that helped you better understand who you are and your purpose?
I'm grateful because I've had people who've tapped into my purpose. I was a children's choir director. I started at 15 and a half years old. And at that age, for some reason, the half in the 15 and a half was important. So I always include that. But yeah, I started when I was 15. And, I remember constantly just trying to run from it. I was good at it. I was able to bring the kids together. I was a young kid, but, parents responded, the kids responded, and I ran from it. Like, I went to South Korea and I was like, I'm never doing this again. And I prayed a prayer. I was like, God, don't you ever put me through something like that again. And then all of a sudden I get to Korea and they're like, oh my goodness, I don't know how my resume was circulated or how it got to the church. But now I got people coming up to me saying, oh, well, we were praying for God to send us someone to teach the kids music. And I'm looking at them like, first and foremost, are you asking me or are you telling me? Second of all, these kids speak Korean. I speak English. How am I gonna make this work? But, I'm grateful because I still had people who were like, no, maybe this is what you're meant to do. Maybe this is part of your calling. Maybe this is part of your purpose. And as I've gotten older, I've taken the time to really take time in understanding my personality. I have this obsession with personality assessment. So I'm big on Myers-Briggs. Yes, I love Zodiacs. I don't like Zodiacs for the horoscopes. I'm more of just understanding the diversity of personality, right? Mm-hmm. I am not one of those gung-ho people that if I find out you a Gemini or you a Virgo or whatever, I'm not going to be friends with you. But again, for me, it's like really understanding the diversity of personality and what makes people their beautiful selves. And so I've taken, Myers-Briggs. I took the time to understand my learning style and so on and so forth. And then you kind of look at those things and you're like, wow, I'm not as weird as they say that I am, or there's no such thing as normal, right? You find, oh, okay, I'm introverted. No wonder I really need more time to myself just to take a break or just to recharge so that I can do everything else. I do like things to be organized, and that doesn't mean I'm OCD, right? That is an actual clinical mental illness, but that doesn't always mean I'm OCD. That just means that I might need a little bit more organization so that I can produce a little bit more, or I can function a little better. And so in doing that, I think I was able to really bridge that with all of the things that I was working on. And it gave me a better understanding of myself. It helped me to better accept who I am, right? And what I come with. It also helped me to show myself grace for those opportunity areas that I have, right? Okay, maybe, and I'm very much a creative person. So I have some friends who are like, listen, they see a bowl with 5 yellow lemons and they see 5 yellow lemons in the bowl. For me, no, we going international. We got a store on Shopify. We making sales. We going global. We got all types of passion fruit flavor, passion fruit lemonade, not even pink lemonade. We got passion fruit. We got all the Caribbean flavors in them. Guava, all of it. And that's me, because I'm a very creative and sometimes just always thinking down the line. You give me an idea, I've already come up with a 3 to 5 year plan and it's done and we ready to execute. But that doesn't make me a bad person, right? But that also shows that there are opportunities to improve there, where sometimes you just got to look at things just the way they are. It's not always, what could it be, or sometimes, what it is what you see is what you get. And so even with that, I've been able to embrace that, that's an opportunity area, and I'm aware of that, and I can work through that, and I can navigate through that. And so again, when you think of your purpose and how you can make an impact on other people, it's also understanding yourself, right? Because I think what has worked the best for me in stepping out and being purposeful and really empowering people to be their best authentic selves, right? To live up to the highest standards of their purpose. What's worked for me is being my authentic self. Growing up, I was one of these kids. I had my own style. I had my own little swag. If you ask me, I was so bad, right? I wore neckties. I would wear my mother's shoes. Like, when I was a kid, I probably thought I was a little baddie. Was I too young to think that? Yes. But, I just had my very unique style, right? And I was usually the first among my friends to do my hair a certain way, or like just kind of step outside of the box. And so growing up, sometimes I had challenges where you always have people who kind of look down on you, or they talk about you like you're weird, or, even when it comes to dating, I don't know what man would want to be with some woman with like blue hair or pink hair or whatever it is, or hair that looks like that, or, even my glasses. Ironically, I have an eyewear company, but a lot of the styles that I sell now are the same styles that people were laughing at me for. So really it took me going on this journey of saying like, you're beautiful just the way you are. Pink hair, blue hair, green hair, whatever you want to do, big glasses, small glasses, you are beautiful just the way you are. And so it caused me to kind of step outside just as I am. I remember when I first started working at my day job, I was so stuck on like what they would think about my appearance. I had my hair in like a fire red and a honey blonde. So I went in and I put some kinky twists in, all black. So I looked professional. And I felt so uncomfortable because, of course, we put in protective styles because we can do all these different styles with our hair. But I know at that particular instant, I wasn't doing it because I needed a break from braiding my hair or twist outs or whatever. I did it because I was afraid of what people would think of me. And it really it irritated me. It irked me. Like I couldn't wait to take the braids out. And I remember speaking with someone and I said, like I have natural hair, my hair is colored. And that person said, oh, it's okay to wear your natural hair as long as it's neat. And I'm like, how do you want to tell a black girl what neat looks? At that point, I remember taking it out and I said, you know what you see is what you get. What you see is what you get. I'm not easing it up on anybody. If you see purple hair today, you see purple hair. And if you see it pink tomorrow, it's going to be pink. And if you see it blue on Friday, it's going to be blue, right? I'm going to switch up the glasses. I'm really just going to step out as myself. And I found that people actually will adjust. People adjust. And when they can see that you're really being no one else but you, they start to adjust. And that all tapped into me really stepping into my purpose and stepping into who I'm supposed to be and how I'm supposed to impact other people. Because now I have people who reach out to me and, I don't say much, but I'll have people reach out to me and say, wow, I really see this journey of this. And I won't say a word. I don't know how they figured out or whatever. But it's like seeing how someone is really just being themselves, marching to the beat of their own drum, leading with love and kindness and compassion and grace for themselves, and trying to be intentional about doing it for others. I mean, that grows on people.
Yeah.
And they become drawn to you, and they become impacted by you, and they want to be able to work with you, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how it worked for me.
I love everything about what you said, because it takes courage to be confident. Absolutely. It takes courage to be different. You know, yeah. I know you see people like such as yourself is like, yeah, I changed my hair color. I am who I am. But you had to grow to that, because it might have been a point where you, like you said, when you were at a job interview and you conformed who you were in order to be accepted. You know, and I feel like that's those microaggressions, right, that we deal with. You know, I think anytime I've been in you had me think about when I was in an interview, I always straighten my hair. I always straighten my hair.
6 wigs on standby.
Yes, always straighten my hair, and then maybe when I get comfortable in, like after that probationary period is hit, I'll wet it and go. Like then it's like a shocker, right? It's like, oh my God, like yes, because I'm here now, you know. But it's like, why couldn't I just do this?
Right, you can't. You're not getting rid of me, right? I do the same thing.
But it's like, why do I even have to do that? Why can't I just have my natural? I don't know what a neat natural is, but like, my natural. What is that? But I
wish somebody would. I wish somebody would tell me something. And I tell people that. I'm like I have people who work in diversity, equity, and inclusion like I do. And they're like, oh my goodness, you know, I want to color my hair this, or I want to leave out my curls. I'm like, you work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. What they gonna tell you? What they gonna tell you?
Right. You can't be diverse.
Right. What they gonna tell you? Oh, your hair should be neat. What does neat look like?
I still don't get that one.
Let's comb through this together. Let's go through the concepts. The theory of having neat hair. I want to understand. And on it, like people, I think we're conditioned, right? And unfortunately, we are also to blame for our own. We grew up, you know, learning certain things, or we're indoctrinated to believe certain things. And that was another conversation, an honest conversation I had to have with myself. Like, how have I done the same thing to others, right? Tried to make them feel bad about themselves for things that I was raised to think that really wasn't true, right? And you know, that's a hard conversation. And of course, you learn to embrace yourself is also being able to be accountable for those times you made other people feel like they shouldn't embrace themselves. But really, when you ask people, oh, well, I remember someone saying, well, there's a standard for how your hair should look. I said, what's the standard? Well, you colored your hair. I said, but you color your grays, don't you? Yes, but the purpose is different. You don't know what my purpose for coloring my grays are. You don't even know if I have grays. You just see that I have big hair. You see what I mean? I think we're just conditioned. Again, we're conditioned to say certain things, to respond in certain ways, but we don't know the basis of it. We don't know the basis. So you step out, and it's an everyday process, right? Because when you're working through years and years and years of people telling you that you're too much or you're not enough or whatever, and you get to a point where you're like, okay, I can step out. You have to understand that people are still going to give you that pushback, right? And you're constantly having to go to that place of checking in with yourself and regrouping and saying, no, I'm good. I'm okay. It's okay. My best authentic self is okay. And dealing with, you know, the insecurities or dealing with the triggers, you know, and yeah, eventually you kind of, you take it one day at a time.
Right, exactly. And I never understood the phrase too much. How are you too much for yourself? And how are you not enough for yourself? These are things that
I can be too much for somebody else, but I'm not too much for myself.
Right, you're not ever too much for yourself. And it's the double standard for me, because Black little girls, if they wear their hair down or if they wear their hair colored, they're fast. The other way around, you see like little white girls with the pink hair, and it's cute with their hair down. Oh, it's so pretty. But for like you said, we've been conditioned that our hair must be in ponytails so that we can be, I guess, less seductive or less fast.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like we're being objectified as girls from little girls up.
Right. And if you think about it, you know, white girls have, and this is not to take away their power, but
No,
you have a
no, I'm
brunette,
just saying
you
that
have a
was-
brunette, right?
Yeah.
Someone with dark color hair who dyed their hair blonde, someone with blonde who went brunette, like, and for us, it's like, okay, I have black hair, and I dyed it blonde, or I went light brown, or I did whatever color. Why is it okay for them, but it's not okay for me? You know,
right. Or it's the age limit to certain colors too.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So many divides, and really, this is just stuff we all grew up with. You know, I feel like if your 5-year-old wants some pink hair, braid some pink hair in there. Teach her how to be an individual, because she's not. She should be known by her character, not by what she looks like or how she wants to express herself. We should be able to express ourselves at any age. How we, you know,
and we should also teach children to not bury their identity in others. And I think, unfortunately, that's what we do. You know, we're raised to bury our identities in our jobs and careers and in societal expectations. Then we get married, and then our identities are buried in our husbands, and then our children's and our children. And there's no space for us to just be us. You know, there's no space to be like, I am Juliette outside of everything else that I'm doing. So yeah, I think there's opportunity for us to, especially little Black girls, especially, like, you are beautiful just as you are. And you want pink hair? Yes, you're beautiful. If that's your favorite color, that's cool. Let's run with it. You know, but not always forcing them to hide themselves behind whatever expectation that society keeps putting on them.
Exactly. And I always try to remind myself that being is a verb. I don't have to put anything behind it. Just being is a verb.
Right there.
So you mentioned South Korea. Now, you did tell us how you ended up there, but can you share some of your experience there, like your most, I don't know, prominent experience or favorite experiences while living there?
Korea was actually one of the best years of my life. I will say that was the beginning of me finding myself. I would say, like, the redefinition of Juliette. I think that's where it really started. I didn't leave home for college, so Korea was my first home outside of home, my parents' home. And so, I mean, some people might not understand it, right? But again, like, this is that place that molded me. Amazing experiences. I think I just really wanted to go in, and I wanted to learn as much as I could, but I also, you know, I didn't care. I think sometimes we travel to places and we keep trying to bring our culture to people instead of just opening, like, having an open lens to receive who they are and see how beautiful they are. And so I would say those were some of my best experiences, really being able to connect with my students and to connect with other people, and really seeing not only the things that made our cultures unique, but seeing what made us very similar. As you know, Haitians, we love us some rice. If you got Haitian friends, you know, we got rice at ice cream parties. We have rice at pizza parties. It's not a party. It's not a venue. It's not a thing if it doesn't have rice. That's what it is. And so I had this bias where I'm like, nobody can eat rice more than Haitians. Like, it's not a thing. And then I got to Korea. I was like, wait, hold on. What? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Snack too? Wow. Like, it love rice. But ironically, I had students who, I think when people think of American culture, oftentimes they yield to the European aspects of American culture, and they don't really realize that it's a melting pot. Like, there are so many cultures in the United States. And I remember having, you know, we had, like, I think they called it tea time. And I was planning this particular term with my students. And my students said, you know, teacher, I want to bring in some snacks or whatever. They said, I know you don't like rice, so I'm going to bring you bread. I said, what? Say that one more time. He said, you don't like rice, teacher Juliette. I said, who told you that? He goes, you're American. I said, so what? And I'm lost. I'm like, Americans don't like rice? What? And that's where I realized that they go by the, you know, in Europe, it's very much a bread pasta type of thing, but it seems that rice is not a big thing. And that was really a teachable moment where, you know, up until that moment, and a lot of my students, they only saw Haiti as a place where the earthquake happened. And I'm like, no, we like us some rice too. I love me rice and I love bread. Bread has got me by the edges. That is my weakness. bread has got me by the edges, but do I love rice? Of course. Who doesn't eat rice? And so that really opened up an opportunity for us to be like, wow, we have so many similarities between our cultures, right? Even the honorific culture, respect for adults. That's one thing, in Black families and West Indian families, honoring your parents, honoring your community, honoring, that's a very, very big thing for us. And so I think those were some of the more precious memories that I have, really having been able to connect with my students on a lot of the things that we had in common, while still honoring and celebrating each other for what made us unique. But overall, amazing experience.
Nice. And you said how many, you were there for a year or?
A year, yeah. A year, I believe, in like 2 months.
Okay, what made you return back to the States?
My contract was over. I missed home.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sure.
I missed home. I mean, you have to also understand different culture, right? And so while I do honor, I think they're very hardworking folks. I honor the culture, but I think from my experience, in my head, I said, if I went back to work in Korea, I would prefer to go on behalf of an American company. And this is in no way to bash their culture or to say their culture is less than. But for me, I think I would have felt more safe where I just kind of like I had a clutch to lean back on. But yeah, my contract was over and yeah, I came back home.
Okay. Now I find it, you are the second person that is an educator that has mentioned that they did not like school. Like they weren't really in school. Like I said, like you are the second, and I find that so like, I'm like, wow, I always imagined all of my professors or teachers that were just like, had a knack for learning and couldn't stop.
I love to learn now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so like that was their like that they started out.
Yeah, if you see me now, right. So if you see me now, it's like, when do you stop, right? So again, I've just wrapped up my PhD and I have friends who are calling me like, just let me know what you're trying to go in for next. I don't even want to ask you how you're going to celebrate. What are you studying next? And they're tired of me. They're really tired. I've had family members who are like, Juliette, I think this is it. I think it's safe to say you are done with school. And I don't respond because I can't promise that. I love school. I do. But years ago, I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't want to be a teacher as a kid. I will say that. I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to be a classroom teacher. For a very trivial reason, I threw it away. I think, we had a day off for Superintendent's Day, and we came back and we're excited to, ask our teacher about what she did on her day off. And she said, no, I didn't get a day off. The teachers have to come into school. We got to come in for training. I was so turned off. I was in the 6th grade. I said, absolutely not. This one day, and I got to come in while these kids stay home? No. Oh, no, absolutely not. Me? I threw the whole thing away. It's a trivial reason, but in my 6th grade, I think I was maybe 10. So that made sense. These kids are not about to get a day off and I'm coming in and I'm working. No, I don't care if we get summer vacations off. I want Superintendent's Day off too. And I threw it away.
No.
But yeah, I didn't, I was bullied at some point in school as well. And then, in middle school, I was able to find my ground and friends and so forth. By the time I got to high school, we moved to a new town, and I did make friends at my high school, but I still didn't enjoy it because, again, I was going to a predominantly white school. So I couldn't identify with a lot of the kids. I was sitting in honors and college classes, and you're the only Black kid in the class, So when I got my relief was when I was sitting in, the normal level classes where, unfortunately, that's where you seen the rest of the Black kids, right? Mm-hmm. They weren't placing them all in the higher level classes and so on and so forth. But, I didn't really care for school. I did my homework. I got things done. This is not to say that, I was lax or anything like that. My parents were very, very strict where it's like, no, you don't have a choice.
Right.
Bring home these grades. Yeah. So that, and I mean, again, even going into college classes, that was tough for me too, because that was the first time I'd failed. I'd failed tests, I'd failed assignments. I started missing homework because it's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't catch up. And that's when it started to catch up to me like, oh my goodness, maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. because I was always getting 90s and 100s. Last time I saw like a 98 on a project instead of 100. But what happened to the extra 2 points? You can give it to me because I put my name on the paper at least, So I think a lot of those things kind of contributed to perhaps the stress, being overwhelmed, not feeling included, not feeling seen, not really caring for school. And I think it was when I did my master's that I actually found how immersed I was in what I was learning. I was also working, so I was able to connect, kind of align what I was learning with what I was applying at work. So that's where I kind of started to enjoy my experience more. And ironically, I don't want to say I've never been a classroom teacher, because I was a classroom teacher in South Korea. That's where I stood in a classroom and I taught English. But I came back to the States and I said, I don't want to do that. And a lot of my students were like, no, Teacher Juliette, you're a great teacher. I said, I don't want to do it. I honor my father and my cousin who do it. I couldn't, in my head, in my West Indian, to be fair, in my West Indian head, I said, I can't deal with, high school kids and stuff like that who got attitudes and stuff. And, you can't let your voice go up past a certain decibel. Right. And, I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to deal with the attitudes. I didn't want to deal with the stress. Again, another trivial reason. But, when I started my journey of really educating and that was more on an individual level, and that's what I do. So I do private tutoring, but I really identify my students' learning needs. You create a learning plan for them, and it can include their homework, but it's really looking at their opportunity areas, looking at their strengths, building on those strengths, looking at their opportunity areas, also tapping into their self-awareness. What is your learning style? How does that work, right? They'll come to me and I'll say, okay, hey, this is your homework. And they say, okay. And I say, okay, are you an auditory learner? And they say, no. What is your learning style? I'm a kinesthetic learner. What does that mean? Well, I'm hands-on. So what are you going to do? Because you're not going to remember what I just told you. So What are we going to do? Okay, Miss Juliette, can you repeat that so I can write it down? Of course I can. Or can we do this problem together? Sure. Because there's a level of awareness that I walk them through. So that's kind of what I do more on an individual. And of course, educating is not just, your K through 12. It's your grad students, it's your college students. It's training in the workplace, right? It's coaching in the workplace. It's really equipping people with knowledge, skills, and abilities in whatever way it is. I was a children's choir for almost 15 years at this point, teaching kids music, teaching them leadership, teaching them teamwork, teaching them how to listen to each other. That all goes into who I am as an educator. So for me, it's a little more multifaceted as compared to, the standard or the status quo.
Right. That's why I said that. I feel like that's ironic because we have our thoughts on teachers just wanted to, like, they always were into whatever you're supposed to, we have these little, like you said earlier, these ideas of people that are in certain careers, how they were when they were younger. And I find that is not so. Like, that's why I said I found that kind of ironic. Like, you're the second person to say that. But I do want to ask a question that I didn't have written down. Do you feel like you being at a predominantly white school, do you think that somewhat prepared you for the corporate world or for college? Because it was opposite for me. I was in an all Black school and then transitioned into like a predominantly white college.
Right. I guess you can say it did. I think it did some things that helped me to kind of tune things out. I think I will say from elementary to like my first month in high school, I've grown up. It was very well blended, right? There was no predominantly this or predominantly that. Your Asians, you had your Hispanics, you had your West Indian, you had your African American, you had your white. There was nobody that was a majority. So no one really knew the difference, if I'm being honest. And even when I connect with my friends now, when we tap back into those who we were as kids, a lot of us are like, we didn't know the difference, right? Perhaps our adult friends may have disparities, but in your classroom where you're in an honors class and there's an equal distribution of every culture, there's no difference. Then when I get to high school, and of course there are those disparities, you are targeted. And there were very subtle, I was bullied, but it was very subtle. There weren't kids boldly calling me the N-word or anything like that. I did see a white girl call another white kid the N-word. And I had to pray for the Spirit of the Lord to just say, you're not gonna fight that battle. It's not for you. That one is not for you. You just leave that one. But I think what what happened is I kind of got this thing where I had to keep people at like arm's length. And so it was enough where I disconnected myself emotionally and mentally, where I see a human being, I see their performance, and it's like, oh, okay. But in terms of how they feel about me as a Black person, I'm never going to tap into that. And that's how I went for a lot of years. I went for a long time. And it wasn't until George Floyd passed away. I remember sitting on a Zoom call. They had a Zoom call, and, you know, a lot of the Black employees from my organization came on, and some white as well, to just kind of hear the experiences. And of course, everyone was grieving at that point. And, you know, there was a white executive who asked, you know, tell us what you need. And I went on and I shared my story. I said, I went to a white high school, and I kind of realized that I literally emotionally disconnect myself. So even with my directors who came in, white male, there was a lot of distance I held from them because I just did not want to know. I came in and I was like, listen, I don't want no smoke. You always find me in my cubicle. I'm never bored. I'm always working. I'm always busy to answer all of the questions that you think that you may have. The work's always getting done. And that was it. But I always did that because I did not want to have enough where it was like, okay, now I know how they feel about me again, as a woman, as a Black person. And I was on that Zoom call, and I remember saying, like, do not expect us. You want to know what you can do? Learn our history the way we had to sit in your white classrooms, and not learn ours, but learn your history, right? From your perspective. You know, we don't want to have to sit here and be politically correct. So learn it the politically incorrect way. And it was at that moment that I realized that those experiences I had in high school really kind of framed how I interacted with people in the workplace. And it wasn't that I hated white folks, right? It wasn't that I couldn't work with them, but I realized how much distance I kept from them so that I did not have to have any perception, and that I would not be impacted by how they probably truly or did not feel about me as a Black person. So.
Awesome. I never even thought about this, like how we have to just kind of condense or cut ourselves out emotionally when we're in certain situations, just so we can focus and do the job at hand. You know, I never even thought about that. It's a lot of editing when you're out in the world, it seems like. Yeah, you're making me realize that in this interview. Yeah, so that's a great answer. I always wondered that, because when I transitioned from a predominantly Black school to predominantly white college, it was a little culture shock for me. My mom used to always take me downtown Chicago just so I could understand diversity, and, you know, we're not the Blacks are not the only race, you know, here, but it still was a shocker because I didn't have my mom anymore, you know. So it was just kind of like, if you say something to me I don't like I know I can't be too aggressive. Like, I learned this, you know, while going to school, like, oh, I raised my voice, but I wasn't really mad. I'm just loud, you know what I'm saying? But I'm scaring you, and I don't understand why. Like, you know, so I had to learn those certain things. And like you said, what we said earlier about the interview, like editing myself, make sure I have an inside voice, like don't scare the people, you know. So it's just so many edits when you are a minority and a woman too, and like a woman and a non-white.
And there are times with my coworkers, there are times I'm like, listen, I'm gonna let you talk on this call. I'm gonna let you talk. I don't know how to be politically correct in this situation. And there are times you know, often I've been better about taking time to just think before I speak. But there are times I don't feel like it. There are times I don't have it in me. And I have enough wisdom to say, listen, I don't know how to be politically correct here. You know, sometimes I have people ask me questions and I'm like, you don't want the answer to that. No, I'm asking because I want to know. No, you don't. And I'm gonna choose not to respond. I'm gonna choose to bow out of this one. It's all right, because sometimes, like, my oppression and my suppression is not, there's nothing politically correct about it. So there's no way I'm able to wash it up to make it feel good for you, right? And unfortunately, you know, I try to exhibit a little more grace, especially as a Black woman, right? I've sat on calls with who, you know, when they're offering their services, their costs are astronomically high, right? For me. Their costs are astronomically high, and their policies that are in place, you know, you might as well give them 150% of the down payment up front, you know, and they're very strict. But some people might be like, why is she so snotty, and why is she this? You know, I accept this and I don't accept this, and I only take cash, and things like that. And for me, I have to take time to step back and say, that comes from somewhere. When you have to set that many boundaries, it's because you were not allowed to set boundaries. And that's what happens to us as Black women. We're, number one, not allowed, right? Mm-hmm. And it gets to the point, perhaps we weren't even taught. And then people overstep the boundaries that we should have had. And so what do? We have to overcompensate, right? When we're having our services, I don't want to say snotty, but we're more firm about it. We have to be more firm. You know, this is what it is. I don't take refunds, or I'm sending you to collections if you go over 30 to 60 days, whatever it is. Because it comes from a place of, listen, I'm tired of people taking advantage of me. And I'm, you know, as Auntie Maxine says, you know, I'm reclaiming my time. You know, I'm taking my time back. And so for me, I've learned to have that grace for Black women, especially. I try to have grace for women. I think, and especially when you work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think it's challenging because you have to advocate for everybody, even those who don't like you, and even those who benefit from the system that doesn't like you. And I think being in this role, even watching, for example, the Emmett Till story, that was something that really came to life for me, really like stuck to me when I watched the documentary on the series on Hulu. And I was like, wow, you know, like that's where the Karen syndrome started, where you had a white woman who literally claimed that someone grabbed her wrist, and everybody's like, oh my goodness. And it's like, they just lynched him, like beat him up to a pulp, and you don't see him as a human being. And even when we look at what's going on in Ukraine, right? You have people like, oh my goodness, the strength of the Ukrainians, and I don't take it away from them. They deserve safety. They deserve a safe space. But it's like, y'all don't see those African students the same way. We didn't see they didn't see the Palestinians the same way, right? Palestinians who were trying to leave and find refuge for their families, we didn't see them as resilient and strong. When there were Haitian migrants at the border trying to make a life for their kids and their families and themselves, you know, it's not that they hate their country, but they're looking for safety. Right. We didn't see them as resilient, right? We didn't see them as human enough so that we weren't gonna take whips and beat, you know what I mean? So I think it's challenging sometimes when you look at how the world is and how they view, for example, Black women and how resilient we're supposed to be. I tell people, say, oh, Black girl magic. I'm like, no, this is Black girl. This is not magic. This is not a trick. You didn't see it. It wasn't a poof, and here it is. It's hard work. It was my hard work. Right. You know, it's not magic. You know, I don't need to always be the strong Black woman. You know, some people say, for example, when people lose a loved one or whatever, I will not tell my sisters, be strong. I will say, I'm praying for your healing and I'm praying for your peace and your comfort, but I'm not going to tell you to be strong. Why do we always have to be strong? You know, and especially in the workplace, you know, you have to always just stand down while someone else is like flipping out or losing it. And while it's unfair, you know, for me, I know I learned to share grace when I see the effects of that.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. I feel all of that. Like, I don't even have a rebuttal there because that's exactly how I feel. And I've preached that so many times that it's just exactly how I feel, to the point where I'm kind of where you at. I just got to be me. And if this conversation is going to veer us into something uncomfortable, then maybe we just shouldn't have this conversation, because I can't keep editing who I am, because that causes stress, and that's a toll on your mental health, to never just be free to be you, you know? And then it's like, well, what's wrong with her? She can't be herself.
And there's nothing wrong.
Right. It's like,
and you have to be okay. I've told people, like people who've invited me to speaking engagements, I'm like, you saw the hair color in my picture, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, you see that it's not Black. It's not a dark brown, right? Okay, so you're inviting me to speak. Sure, because I do not want to step into a space where I'm not welcome.
Right.
You know, and I think we need to be okay with that as well. Not all money is good money. Not every opportunity is the best opportunity. It's all right. Another one will come, you know, but if you're not welcome there, don't always feel like you have to squeeze yourself or abbreviate yourself. You know, I get it. Sometimes we have to do starting from the bottom, work my way up. There's hard work and so on and so forth. But when it comes to compromising who you are at your core and your values and so on and so forth, it's not worth it.
It's not at all. It's not at all. Perfectly said. Well, before we wrap up, we have a signature question here, BYOK. Okay. And if you could describe yourself in one word, what would it be and why?
One word. Oh, I don't want to use the word crazy. I would say I'm a conundrum.
And why?
I think conundrums are more based on complexity than being complicated. And maybe that's the word, complex. You know, again, as Black women, people, I know in my experience, people see me as complicated, right? And I think I've accepted that. You know, I've accepted the terms of, oh, you're stubborn and you don't listen and this and you don't. And then in my journey, I'm like, no, a complicated person is someone who's difficult to understand. And I'm not difficult to understand, but I am complex, and that's what makes me beautiful. There are so many different aspects of me that make me who I am, you know, and I choose to step out as those different aspects. And that's what makes me the most beautiful. So yeah, the conundrum, complex.
I love it. There's layers.
Absolutely.
I love
there
that.
We go.
Yes, you have like spoke to my heart because I related to absolutely everything you said today. Yes, I did.
Right here. It's our month. It's our month. We got to ride this whole thing out.
Exactly.
Yes, last month was our month. Now it's our month. We got to ride this whole thing out.
And exactly, you know, I saw the confidence in your hair color. Like I said that in the beginning, that's what drew me to you. I'm like, her? She rocking it? She rocking it like this is her. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I know like the things we've been talking about during this episode, you know, of how the little boxes that we're put in. And I'm like, that is dope. Like, you know, I just started putting a little color in my head.
Go with it. I mean, I've even told my students, I remember one student said, you know, how I guess people were laughing at her because I think a wig on or she had extensions and they were trying to call her out. And I said, girl, let them know it's a wig. You got hair.
Right.
And if you didn't have hair, it's all right. I said, the next time they try to say, oh, that's not her hair, be like, all right, what's your point?
It's on my head, so it's my hair. I bought it.
What is the conclusion of this clip? It's not my hair.
Right.
I have the money, the means to buy it. Where are we going with this? Help me out. Help me help you. Huh? Help me help you. And my student was like, really, Miss Juliette? I said, absolutely. You go back and you ask them where they're going with that. Claim it. Claim it. They can't you can't, if you laugh at yourself or if you claim it, no one can laugh at you. You know, and I've gotten all kinds of comments. Cotton candy. I got, was it a leprechaun I got the other day? I got everything. I got cotton. Yeah, I got everything. But you know what? It's like, it is what it is. Someone was like, oh, I see you doing St. Patty's Day and Valentine's Day in one head. Sure. Okay. You know what I mean? Because when you, there are some things that, yes, they are offensive, are triggers, right? And I don't want to take away from that. But if you embrace it, if you laugh at yourself, if you claim it, there's nothing anybody can say, because it really speaks to people's lack of self-confidence more than it speaks to yours. So.
Exactly. And I really enjoyed this conversation. I really did. Before we get off, where can people find you in your book and your, I know you had a frame business. Where can everybody find you?
Yes, you can visit my website at JulietteNuriNelson.com, JulietteNuri, Nuri spelled N as in Nancy, URI, Nelson spelled N as in Nancy, EL as in Larry, SON, JulietteNuriNelson.com. I'm also on Instagram as Juliette Nuri Nelson. You can follow me on LinkedIn. If you add me, please let me know you're on this Be Your Own Kind podcast, because I can filter that from those who are offering marketing packages and so on and so forth. But yes, if you go to my website, you can access my book. My book is there. You can access my eyewear collection and everything else that I'm working on. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Juliette, thank you for blessing BYOK for this hour. And listeners, I hope that you were blessed by this. It aligns with being your own kind and not letting people put you in a box. there's layers to us all, and we should be able to. This is gonna be so corny, but let's be biscuits. It's a ton of layers in biscuits. Like, you know, it's okay.
Because biscuits are the best. And don't
are.
be a stale biscuit either. Don't be a stale one. You know.
No, you gotta be that hot fluff one right out the oven.
Right. Right. A Popeye's biscuit. You know what I mean?
There you go. And so until next time, everybody, don't forget to be kind to yourself and be kind to each other. Bye.